welcome to this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Équinoxe Television, live from our headquarters in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. I am Babla Jonathan. In our top stories in this edition of the news, Cameroon's Minister Delegate at the Presidency of the Republic in charge of defense, Joseph Bétier Somo, says the abduction and killing of students and teachers cannot be tolerated. Speaking today in Kumba in the southwest region, Minister Joseph Bétier Somo expressed government's determination to track down and punish those responsible for the Kumba massacre 24th October 2020, and the government of Cameroon is warning about increasing figures of the coronavirus pandemic increasing in the recent weeks in the Republic of Cameroon. And out of the country, Donald Trump refuses to concede defeat in the 2020 presidential election in the United States of America, but provides no evidence of electoral fraud. We begin this newscast in the Kumba, chief town of the Meme Division, southwest region of the Republic of Cameroon, where Operation Ghost Town, imposed by pro-independence fighters in the northwest and southwest regions of the Republic of Cameroon, is still dictating its own laws. The town of Kumba was deserted today, void of inhabitants. The town was near death zone, as the Minister of Defense, or the Minister Delegate at the Presidency in charge of Defense, Joseph Bétier Somo, was visiting the town after the Kumba massacre. And the Minister of Defense, Joseph Bétier Somo, said the killing of students of the Mother Francisca International Bilingual Academy, and of course attacks on other students and teachers, cannot be tolerated. He expressed government's determination to track down and punish those who are responsible for the Kumba school massacre. And he was speaking today as the government launches investigations into the incident that happened in the school in Kumba 2 subdivision on the 24th of October. The 24th of October 2020. We should be having some images of Kumba that was deserted today, as the Operation Ghost Town is still being respected across the two English-speaking regions of the Republic of Cameroon. We'll be coming back with those images in our subsequent news editions. Images of Kumba that was ghosted today, so to speak. Now, in the meantime, civil society and opposition political leaders are condemning what they consider as the silence of the President of the Republic, Paul Biya. They think that the head of state has become more or less an absentee landlord, so to speak, with regards to the fact that he's not made any statement since some of the major incidents occurred in the two Anglophone regions of the Republic of Cameroon, notably the killing of the 7 students in Mother Francisca International Bilingual Academy in the Kumba 2 subdivision. He's spoken on the internet, but the civil society leaders think that he should have come out with a speech. He should have gone to Kumba to meet the bereaved families, to meet the students who are in the hospital, but his close collaborators think that it is not true to say that the President of the Republic is an absentee landlord, because the Prime Minister has been to Kumba, has been to Boya, has been to the areas affected by the 4-year-long Anglophone crisis. The Minister of Territorial Administration has also been there, and other authorities, the governors, the senior divisional officers who are representatives of the head of state. Now take a listen to a political scientist, Professor Visngole, and of course Fru Jonathan, who is the former Secretary General of the Ministry of Mines, Industries and Technological Development and chargé de mission at the CPDM Central Committee. Take a listen.
Our president is a president who is not someone who wants to be seen for the sake of being seen. He's not someone as a character of wanting to play to the gallery. He's not somebody who wants to play to the public gestures and gesticulations and maneuvers and so forth like politicians. He's a statesman. And as a statesman, he has the statesman-like values. He's a man who speaks in less words, speaks less, but is very effective. I have always said to people, there is effectiveness in the silence, or what some people call the silence of the president. It's a method of leadership. And that method of leadership has worked in the last 38 years because the Cameroonian state, in spite of all the problems that are attendant here and there, which are not specific to Cameroon, by the way, the Cameroonian state is up, strong, the institutions are still stable and they are functioning, the laws are still stable, they are functioning. The leadership is not authority, and power in Cameroon is not in the street. In the streets, people always expect that the president should be like another president. The president should be like this or like that, like Macron. I've heard these stories. Oh, he should be like what Macron did here. He should be like what this person did here. Look, I say this to people, and I say it as a political scientist, not as a militant of the CPDM. Leadership, national leadership, is not. You don't compare leaderships. Leadership is ascribed to personalities, and once you have it, it is what makes you succeed at it is your character, your temperament, your wealth of experience, your knowledge, your sense of goodwill, your sense of humanism, and everybody knows that who knows the president, who wants to know, in honesty and in good faith, there's wealth of knowledge about the president. They will see that this is a leader who uses less words, but he's very effective. And some will say it's silence, whereas it is not silence. He is very effective. And everyone knows that by virtue of his character, by virtue of his temperament, he is a moderate, humble, very endeared to his people.
The president of the republic, he talks to Cameroonians on a daily basis. We will say the president is everywhere. I don't think that the president needs to move from village to village, town to town, region, for the people to recognize the job he's doing. I think President Paul Biya has put in place all the strategy, all the infrastructure, all the policies that can help Cameroonians to live happily and be able to ensure the development of our country. We should admit that President Paul Biya is a man of results. What are we looking for? He wants the people to be happy. He wants to solve their problems. These children were killed, brutally killed. The families have to be consulted. The families have to be assisted. Medical assistance to help bury the children in a dignified manner. The president has done it.
President Paul Biya, a man of few words, a man of results. We'll talk more about this in the second part of this edition of the news. Thousands of Cameroonians have been rendered homeless by floods in the far north region of the Republic of Cameroon. The floods destroyed over 500 houses over the weekend, and this is as a result of rising water level and strong winds in Kuseri, Madagascar, and other localities in the Logun and Shari division of the far north region. Innocent as it has more.
Over 500 houses in the localities of Kuseri, Madagascar, Babo, and Nenga in the Logona-Shari division of the far north region of Cameroon are known to have been destroyed since November 2nd, 2020 till present by inundation as a result of rise of water level, unable to be contained by the weak and low dike during strong winds. This phenomenon is recurrent in these localities. When this happens, we only cry because we cannot control it. Consequences of this inundation are numerous. Many have been displaced.
J'avais ma maison et c'était pris par l'eau. C'est pourquoi j'ai placé ma tente ici.
Vulnerability to waterborne diseases and also malaria.
On est chaque fois tombé malade, on est chaque fois pris par le palu. Nous sommes là restés.
Forceful confinement as some of the affected cannot step out. Children find it difficult to go to school. Some of them remain home as they are afraid to get on board these canoes to be transported to and from school.
On traverse avec la pirogue pour arriver à l'école.
Locals add they are compelled to pay 100 to 200 francs to be transported over a distance of 100 meters. This lady, Rose Vanessa, is from buying oil to prepare food. Being the new and popular transportation means, she is compelled to pay at least 50, 100 or 200 francs CFA for any movement. Poverty, the forceful confinement and the closure of borders, like with Chad as a result of the COVID-19, have drowned them into famine.
Nos activités sont aux arrêts. On a de quoi faire quoi.
Les frères viennent pas à mon secours donner.
This father now relies on his brothers for food.
Dîner avec eux peut-être, sinon je n'ai rien à voir.
Government authorities are once more implored to come to their aid and ensure the dike constructed be reinforced, that is, raising its height and making it more solid like that of Chad to avoid these frequent destructive inundation.
Corruption remains one of the cankerworms identified as a serious hindrance to development in the Republic of Cameroon, from public administration to private companies. Corruption is a major problem, and young people have now been tasked to take up the fight against the corruption cankerworm in the Republic of Cameroon. The call was made in Douala by the Littoral Regional Delegate of Youth and Civic Education during the launch of the fight against corruption and anti-corruption campaign. For me, Armstrong Sander reports.
Despite improvements made after the dishonorable position of one of the most corrupt nations in 2015, Cameroon is still far away from eradicating the societal ill of corruption.
The government had taken measures to promote the fight against bribery and corruption, and this is a very large activity. You have the Special Criminal Court, you have the Account Court, and you have this organization we call CONAC.
One of such front targets the youth and is introduced by the Mandela Washington Fellowship Cameroon alongside the Ministry of Youth and Civic Education.
The youths of Africa and even Cameroon, they constitute at least over 60% of the population. It is therefore imperative for young people to take responsibility and right now be able to fight bribery and corruption.
The fight, which Yali says will promote meritocracy, better opportunities and eradicate bribery and corruption, will be implemented in different phases.
We are going to formulate a manual, an anti-corruption manual that is going to educate young people, students, university students across the 10 regions of Cameroon.
The fight, according to Nancy Sabo of Action for Development and Empowerment, must be done with the support of every Cameroonian.
We have been fighting corruption for 2 years now through our project called Follow the Money Cameroon. Follow the Money Cameroon is an international movement in 8 African countries, and I'm leading this project in Cameroon because it is very important for us to kick corruption out of the nation if we really want sustainable development in our country.
The Ministry of Youth and Civic Education, together with partners, wants the youth in Cameroon to be bold enough to denounce corruption anywhere at any time.
The Cameroon government warns that the COVID-19 pandemic has not yet been conquered in Cameroon, and public health authorities express concerns over increasing COVID-19 figures in the country. Updates with Immaculate Fogwe.
A second wave of COVID-19 infections. The warning follows an increase in the number of positive cases few months after eased containment measures to boost businesses. Anti-COVID-19 measures such as hand washing, wearing a face mask, social distancing are slowly being abandoned, especially in public spaces, even when the disease is yet to be completely eradicated. According to Cameroon's Minister of Public Health, Dr. Manauda Malachi, the country has recorded an increase in the number of positive cases in the month of November, which stands at 673 and 6 deaths. An overall 22,421 positive cases have been registered, with 433 deaths in 9 months. Despite the increase in the number of positive cases in some foreign countries having trade links with Cameroon, the borders are still open, with authorities relying more on the reinforcement of anti-COVID-19 measures in order to stop the virus from spreading. Cameroonian scientists are currently carrying out research in order to come up with antibodies that can fight the virus.
In the same vein, the coronavirus vaccine being developed by Pfizer and BioNTech has been found to be 90% effective in preventing people from getting the virus, and phase 3 of Pfizer's trial involved 43,538 participants from 6 countries. They received 2 doses of either the immunization or a placebo, with 90% protected from the virus within 28 days of having the jabs, and only 94 people who took part in the trial developed coronavirus, and no serious safety concerns were reported. The United States pharmaceutical firm has confirmed this information, indicating, I quote, "Today is a great day for science and humanity. The first set of results from our phase 3 COVID-19 vaccine trial provides the initial evidence of our vaccine's ability to prevent COVID-19. That is a statement by Pfizer Chairman and Chief Executive Dr. Albert Bourla. Will be coming back to this information in greater details in our subsequent news editions. And in the United States of America, Donald Trump refuses to accept defeat against Joe Biden in the 2020 presidential election, but provides no evidence of electoral fraud. Katsi Euronews.
Still voted for the sitting president. Across the country, supporters of President Trump aren't only disappointed, many are refusing to accept the results of the election.
You look at it, and it's the press that called it, and it's fully proof that the press is manipulating and propagandizing this whole election. They're brainwashing people. You can see it clearly.
We're still in this fight. We're out here to be loud, to be heard, to demand transparency, and we just want answers. There's a lot of questions still, and a lot of races are still very close that shouldn't be called.
Donald Trump's team continue to assert their unfounded allegations of voter fraud. No US president in the history of the country has refused to concede defeat once all the ballots have been counted. The question is, how does the United States react if Donald Trump doesn't do it?
I mean, so there's a number of things that they are alleging, as you say, that have absolutely no evidence. I mean, so the kinds of things that they could say would be to challenge whether ballots were submitted lawfully. That is, that they have to be signed, they have to be dated, you have to note your correct date of birth on the forms when you submit them. So they might be looking for some kind of technical glitches that people have not properly signed and certified their ballots. That could be one thing. Another might be, another legal challenge could be on the counting, that there can be mistakes that are made in counting things. So that could be kind of pushing for recounts in various states. But I also think that these challenges are not going to get very far. I mean, mistakes happen and all the time. However, they're often relatively small. And many of the states that Trump's looking at are actually Republican-controlled states as well, where there are Republican officials who are overseeing these ballot counting, which kind of further undermines the conspiracy narrative.
So what do you think the strategy is then of the Republicans, and how long of a time frame do they have to just keep lodging these new challenges?
Well, they don't have much time at all, because there will be inauguration happening in mid-January. So we're a little over a month away or so from that happening. And that's enshrined in the Constitution. So that's going to happen. There won't be any delay in that. So I do think that whatever legal challenges they're going to make, we've been hearing lots of threats about these things. There's been at least one case has been submitted to a judge, it's been immediately thrown out as based on just what was called hearsay evidence, just gossip and rumor and no facts at all to back it up. So I think that we'll see these cases coming fast and furious. I think we'll be seeing them probably this week. They're going to need to move fast to be heard and considered. But I also think that you're going to see them thrown out as fast as they are received, because there is no evidence that there's anything behind these lawful challenges. There's very specific grounds for being successful on.
And this is where we end the first part of this newscast. Talking Point is up next. Thank you for staying with us in Talking Point. Today we are receiving Reverend B. Christian. He is a clergy, a counselor, and a chaplain. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Babula. Thank you for inviting me.
All right, you must have listened to Professor Elvis Ngole and through Jonathan saying that President Paul Biya is a man of few words, he's a man of results, he's a man of effectiveness and efficiency.
Well, I cannot, tender their voice or what they are saying. We are in a country of law and human rights, and everybody have the right to say whatever you want to say. But I want to say that silence is a voice, and silence is a voice in two perspectives. It can be a voice of strength, and it can also be a voice of weakness. And I believe that in this point of time where Cameroon is going through COVID-19 and the world is going through Southern Cameroon, I believe that silence is a sign of weakness of poor leadership. Because when there are people that have voted in power, they are going through trauma and through some psychological, wahala. Let me put it that way. It is a time for you to speak, because as a father in the house, when there's a crisis that's going on in the house and the father remains silent, a lot of things will happen. So we believe that now that the president is silent, the silence to me is a sign of poor leadership. It's a sign of ineffective in leadership. That's how I look at it. Because at this point of time, they need the president to talk. They need the president to come out to align strategies on how things have to work and how the way forward for this country. And because of that, the country is like everybody think that the president, because we are in a country that is not a dictatorial country. It's a democratic country.
Those who are close to him think that the president of the republic is not like others. He does not want to be seen for seeing sake. He does not want to just appear in public like that. He speaks very few words, and results come out of those few words.
Well, that is the words of people who are in the ruling party. They are fond of saying that to us. And if you look at it, ineffectiveness in their administration and in level of health, road facility, infrastructures, and other things, you discover that all what they are saying doesn't make sense. Because even the president is silenced, but we are seeing action on the ground, we can deduce from there that they are working. But if you look at it critically from our own perspective of view, you discover that instead it's a sign of ineffectiveness in leadership. Because if they are saying that the president is a few words, the president was not there. He just entered. It's not in Saudi Arabia where we have, a monarchy. It is a democratic nation that the voters, they demand to know what the president is saying in their situation. So if the president is not there, then there's a problem. Then the president needs to speak. For many people now that are talking, that maybe the president is not well, that in the bad shape, that they don't want to say it, or whether the president is absent, because Cameroon is a country that even clone can ruin the country. You can be ruined by a clone. Somebody can just say that this person is there when the person is not there. Because if the person is there, he needs to speak. COVID-19 is ravaging the whole world, and presidents are running left and right, talking, bringing strategies and strategizing how they can combat it. And we have also Southern Cameroon crisis that is going on, that people are talking. And what I realize is that the ruling party is just busy just protective in the president, the level of protecting the president. But
he has been making some statements on Twitter and so on, and then talking about action. His ministers are constantly on the field in action. The Minister of Defense was in the Southwest region today, after the Prime Minister himself was there, after the Minister of Territorial Administration was there, the Ministers of Basic and Secondary Education were there, and they have been in other parts of the country, in other parts of the two Anglophone regions, bringing forth instructions, executing instructions of the head of state.
Well, to me, I just believe that the president was not voted through tweets. And in Africa, in Europe, it can be a lifestyle or it can be a way of communication in administration. But in Cameroon, I don't believe that is how that's the example of the technology that we have deployed in order to make things work. But I would rather tell the people of Cameroon that we are living in a country whereby people can, what we call, many people are suspecting that we are living in a country where it's divide and rule. Anybody can rule in the own way that he can make the country to survive. That's how I'm looking at it. Because, for example, I take example in the case of Nkumba. Normally, when those children were killed in that school, there were two ministers that were supposed to be the front line. If we were talking normal country, the country that follows law and policies, the Minister of Education and the Minister of Defense. But we didn't see that happen. And maybe it's based on, due to the fact that the TV that have been crying foul, the Minister of Defense is not there, and the Minister of Education are not there. That system they are running now to go there. It's not so. It's in a country where there's law. When something happens, the minister is responsible, need to be on the ground to investigate the matter, likewise, and bring out some concrete, investigation to a result on that investigation, so that the people can see and know what went wrong. But now you see people are just crisscrossing, thereby spoiling and destroying taxpayer money, which I'm not in accord with it. Because
the chargé de mission at the Central Committee of the CPD, Fu Jonathan, said that the head of state does not need to be moving from one village to the other, from one quarter to the other, for it to be seen that he is effective or that he is present.
That's why I said it's a sign of poor leadership, it's a sign of failure in leadership. Because as a leader, look at the president worldwide. They decided to go to office because they want to be servant to the people. They want to be servant to the population. And when you are a servant, you do not sit and say, okay, you want to run the country according to the way you think. You run the country in a way that it will help and develop the nation and help everybody will be okay. But if the president decided that I want to stay behind and do things my own way, then it's no more like following policy and following the law. Because normally, according to the law, the president was supposed to go down, according to the law of this nation, the president had to go down the field to see some project, to see what is happening. If people want concern that, in terms of Aijo, we have seen this thing when Aijo was running from one place to another. Even when there was innovating roads, you see Aijo on the field. That is the sign of leadership. Because leader is you lead, other people follow. So the problem is that the CPDN committee, they are just doing what we call protective leadership. They are trying to protect the head of state and say that no, he's a good man, he's working well, he's showing that he's effective in leadership when he's silenced in the midst of a catastrophe like this. For me, it's a failure of leadership. And it's a failure of, it's a failure of leadership. And we have to admit that. Until we admit that it's a failure of leadership, then we cannot move forward. Because how can people be dying? How can people be there and then minister are moving and then the president is silent? I mean, we have seen the president even either making a speech or have a press conference to talk about the situation, thereby showing his concern on what is happening on the field. Because those people that they are suffering are his voters. He said they voted him in power as a president. Then the voters also demand for him to serve them as a president. So they need this is their responsibility to make sure that the president serves them. And the president need to be, so concerned in what, disturbs them in their daily life. So if the president is silent, I don't believe that is a sort of leadership. It's a weakness of leadership.
But the fact that he's leading from the background, so to speak, according to you, the fact that he's not constantly on the forefront, constantly on the ground, does that explain or justify the fact that some people are referring to him as an absentee president?
They are right. He's an absentee president. He's absent. Because normally, when you are an active president, you cannot be leading from behind. Leadership is not leading from behind. Leadership, you must be on the forefront. When you are leadership, you are leading from behind, and people are talking on your behalf. You are not a leader. They are not a leader, and that's the type of leader that we demand the kind of leader to resign, because you are no more active. We are in a nation that way we need active president, someone who is very active, who can go on the field, look at the project that on the field, and that's why people are doing a lot of malicious things on the level of in the name of trying to make the country move forward. People are now engaged in too much telling of lies, unrealized projects and other things, and because nobody is there, everybody wants to do things the way he wants. And when they are doing all those things, they are there to support the president. The president is doing well. He's an active president. He's from behind, but we are doing things. We are not seeing the breakthrough. And we want the breakthrough until we see the breakthrough and the president himself is active. Because you cannot say other president you see around worldwide, they are very active in the office. It's the office that the person who have to sit in that office needs to be active. Somebody, housewife, mental wise, psychologically, spiritually, you have to be active. Because
but the political scientist, Professor Elvis Ngole, who is of course a member of the CPDM, thinks that in political science, leadership should not be compared. Should not be comparing President Paul Biya to Muhammadu Buhari in Nigeria. Should not be comparing President Paul Biya to Donald Trump, Joe Biden, and all the rest. You should not be comparing him to others, because leadership is about the individual and his attitudes, his actions, his reactions, the results.
As I earlier said, it was just a failure of leadership. What the professor is so saying, I don't know the thought of political science is that is war, that is there in the war context that guarantee you or warrants you as a president to lead from behind. I've not seen it in any country like that. So whatever he's saying, as earlier said, they are protecting the president. The absence of the president, they know that the people are so worried, the people are so disturbed, and people are having conflicting ideas. Some people say he's dead, some people say he's sick, some people say he's whatsoever. People are saying things, and they are right, because just come and say that political science, the president can be behind and still working, actively be in power working. I don't feel that it's a failure leadership. The CPDM himself know that they are failed. They themselves know they are failed, because all what they do. So if you look at the mindset, there's an ideology that is running around CPDM leadership, and which is not taking the country forward. They have to come up with that ideology of always being protective of the party rather than be protective of the nation. That's the problem that they have. They protect their party more than the nation, and that is the problem that they have. And whenever there's a deficiency somewhere in the core of leadership, they want to close all the gap by saying some things that are not in line with international norms, and that is the problem that we find ourselves. Because if a professor is coming out like that and saying things like that leadership cannot compare, they are also president, and they know how a president of a country needs to be active. He should be active in every aspect of life.
No, what about the idea that some people may say, but if President Paul Biya is everywhere, at every time, talking about everything, what will those who are in charge of talking about those things be doing?
Everybody have his own rule. The Minister of Communication have his own rule. The Minister of Education have his own rule. The Minister of Defense have their own rule. And the President also have their own rule, his own rule. And when things are like this, what we are facing like COVID-19, we see worldwide how presidents are coming out, they are talking about it, they are putting measures on the ground. We need to see also in that same platform. And we see when the war is going on, we need to see time to time to come and bring measure and see how that measure is helping the situation. If there's a failure, they amend it. If there's a success, and then the people should know if the success is moving forward, or there's no, so the success, the things is now not moving forward. If there's any challenge, they have to know that there's a challenge and see how they can overcome those challenges. So you cannot say you're a president and you say you have to be silenced. No, silence is a voice. Silence shows either you are strong in leadership or you are weak in leadership. So when you are silenced, it shows either you are weak in leadership or you are strong in leadership. But us here in Cameroon, I share is a weakness in leadership, that the leadership is too weak. It's very, very weak in the sense that they decide that because sometimes it's like, for example, let me put one example. When the president went in France and made a statement about what happened in southern Cameroon, they look at it like putting him in front. He might say some things that will take a lot of work think on the ground to adjust it or to amend it. So that's why they decided he should be silenced while they are working. So I believe that if he's there and then they have not allowed him to be silenced while they are working. And if their work is not being supervised by the president, who is the chief in command, then anybody can do anything that he wants and nobody will say anything. So they were able to sign a communique on behalf of the president, signing communique and sending them out, and then saying that the president have said this, the president have said that, the president have given the command, whereas the president actually is not in control of what is happening.
Those who are supporting the head of state think that the state is succeeding to a greater extent in all its assignments. The government is succeeding in all its assignments, and as far as what is happening in the northwest and in the southwest regions, or better still, former British Southern Cameroons, the state is succeeding to a greater extent.
To me, I don't see it that way, because when we talk about a state succeeding, in what parameters do we take to measure how the state is succeeding? When we are saying that it's succeeding, is when the people if you look at if you can do what we call research, and you do some some research, you discover that 3/4 of our population, that's 3/4 of the population, does not believe again in the leadership of this nation or the leaders of this nation, because they have failed and they don't want to accept that they have failed. That is the problem, and they feel that because they are in power, they have all the right to defend themselves, that they are working. Let me tell you, Mr. Babala, when a president is voted in power in a democratic country, it's allegiance to the population. When you remain silent, it means that you have taken the right of the population and put in your pocket. That's how I look at it. And you want to be silent because you don't want to become a steward to the people who have voted in office. But you want them to see you like a god. And that's what I'm seeing. That's what I'm seeing. I look at the whole thing. Because if truly the president is loyal to the people that have voted him in power, then he's not able to be silenced. Because they don't vote somebody, they could have left the presidency empty, that nobody is there. Let us leave a silent presidency so that the country will be working, moving the way it's moving now.
And while the authorities are seeing that everything is under control in the northwest and the southwest regions of the country, because Christian Cardinal Toomey is abducted and later released. The phone of So abducted, still in captivity with other persons.
That is the sign. When we say the country say that succeeding, things are moving. For me, things are not moving because you look at the thousands of people that have died in this crisis. The thousands of people have died, people that are in distress, people that are in pain, people that have gone through trauma and they are still going through trauma, and they up to now they don't understand, they don't know the way forward. And then we are saying that we are succeeding. I don't know the parameters in which they measure that we are succeeding. Maybe it's for example, in Kumba, we say they say everything is fine, everything is under control, there's a lot of security, and we see what happened in that school. So when we say we are succeeding, we want to see the tranquility in the environment, and want to see everybody feeling that things are really normal and things are in good shape. But when things are still in that condition, where the Southern Cameroon, we see people adopted like Kanatomi, and and the font of Saw, and they are still going through some, because for you to abduct it, it's a trauma that they are placing you. You are traumatized. You are not like normal person because you something that you were not prepared for, and because of that, the type of condition that you are placed under, the type of question that they ask you, you are traumatized. Because and people are traumatized.
The Northwest is one of the regions of the country where traditional authorities are still very much respected. But when a traditional leader of the rank of Fonsen Binglo, the phone of Saw, is abducted and kept in captivity for this number of days, what can we read within the lines of the involvement of the crisis?
It's just to tell you that the crisis is still fresh, to be resolved, because what they are saying in Yaoundé and what the leaders and the political in this nation they are saying is not correct. A whole form. We know that in Northwest, form are respectable notables that in fact they are custodian of their culture, of their land, that they are being respected. And even in those days, I quite remember that even if authority leaves here and go to Bamenda, they have to book an audience to see the phone. It shows how respectful they were. But today we are talking about a war where they have desecrated many palaces and fonts like that are that are adopted in daily basis.
Another one killed and his palace burnt in Boya recently.
And still, as we see, and then the authorities are also silenced. They are also silent because in all what is happening in Southern Cameroon, no investigation have been carried and no result have been brought forward to the population that this is the result of this particular case and this is what really happened.
Except for the Ngalbu massacre.
Except for the Ngalbu massacre, that because of the pressure that was on the government. The pressure that was on the government. So the government just feel that silence will make nobody to understand how the government, the mechanism of the government or the machinery is moving, so that they should not be question the government on what this, on that, and that, and that. But I believe that this is the time they have to break the silence, because I was telling to somebody that if traditional government did not take place in this nation, we will continue to suffer, because the leadership of this nation, they don't want to accept that the leadership is adequate, is out of place. People are fed up with the way of leadership, of leading.
From what you're saying, it can be concluded that the prices in the northwest and southwest regions of the country is evolving towards the negative direction, is deepening, but the government says the situation is under control and there is gradual return to peace and normalcy in those two regions. Reverend Bay, a Christian, clergyman, chaplain, counselor, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. That's it for today. Equinoxe is up next.